The site where the Ark of the Covenant was known to have been stored in Israel for 2 decades is about to be excavated for the very first time.
For more than 3,000 years, humanity has searched for it, feared it, and desperately wanted to possess it. It wasn't just a gold-covered chest with angels on top, like the ones we see in movies. According to ancient texts, it was something far more terrifying, the most powerful and dangerous object ever described in early civilization, the Ark of the Covenant. In both the Bible and the Torah, the Ark isn't portrayed as a sacred box meant for peaceful worship. It behaves more like a devastating weapon. Entire cities were burned to nothing. Rivers suddenly stopped flowing or changed their path. Plagues erupted without warning. People lost their hair, their skin blistered and peeled, and death spread instantly. Anyone who touched the Ark without the proper knowledge or protective measures was killed on the spot. There were strict rules, specific procedures and warnings, as if the object required controlled access, not faith alone. For centuries, these stories were dismissed as symbolic or exaggerated religious tales meant to inspire awe and obedience. But what if they weren't metaphors at all? What if these ancient writings were actually early safety manuals, describing the effects of extreme radiation or powerful electrical energy long before modern science existed? Then, in 2023, something happened that could completely reshape our understanding of the past. An event so extraordinary that it should have dominated global headlines. Yet, major media outlets said nothing. A secret international team made up of archaeologists, nuclear physicists, and geophysicists was quietly assembled. Working behind closed doors, they were granted rare access to a location that had been off-limits for centuries: Ethiopia. Their destination was the ancient city of Axum, a place surrounded by mystery and legend. According to the Ethiopian Kebra Nagast, this is where the true Ark of the Covenant has been kept, brought from Jerusalem long before the Babylonian invasion ever took place. Before we continue with what they discovered, we ask for your support. If you're enjoying this investigation, a like and a subscription are the best way to say thank you. We truly appreciate it. They relied on technology normally reserved for the most extreme investigations. The same tools used to detect hidden chambers inside nuclear reactors, scan active volcanoes, and locate underground military bunkers. Muon tomography. Advanced ground-penetrating radar powered by artificial intelligence. Soil spectral analysis designed to identify radioactive isotopes. What appeared on their screens was so alarming that all communications were immediately locked down. The data didn't just suggest that the object existed, it revealed that something was happening inside it right now. That should be impossible for a relic from the Bronze Age. The readings showed an active physical process, a form of decay, a steady release of energy, a phenomenon scientists refer to as cold criticality. This was no dormant artifact. We are now opening the most ambitious investigation ever attempted, one that will break the barrier between science and religion. We will track the footprints of radiation, gold, and blood. We will descend into the forbidden chambers beneath Jerusalem, examine the remains of ancient temples where stone appears to have melted, and climb the high plateaus of Ethiopia. The conclusions of this research stunned the world. They revealed that the Ark was never magic. It was technology, and it is still operational, waiting for someone to shut it down or turn it back on. Our investigation begins at the center of Africa in the ancient city of Axum at the Church of St. Mary of Zion. Behind a tall iron fence crowned with barbed wire stands a modest chapel with a green dome. It looks simple, almost unremarkable. But it is guarded by armed machine gunners. Local monks patrol the grounds day and night, carrying Kalashnikov rifles under strict orders to shoot on sight. They say the Ark has been kept here for nearly 3,000 years. According to tradition, it was brought to Axum by Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. And only one person on earth is allowed to see it: the custodian. The custodian is chosen for life. He never leaves his post. He sleeps inside the chapel, eats there, and ultimately dies there. And disturbingly, custodians do not live long. Most survive only a few years. Local stories are chilling. Guardians lose their hair and teeth. Painful sores and burns appear on their skin and never heal. Many slowly go blind as aggressive cataracts form in their eyes. On rare occasions, doctors who secretly examined the bodies, despite strict prohibitions, recorded something even more disturbing. Their confidential reports describe the classic symptoms of acute radiation sickness. But that raises an impossible question. Where could radiation be coming from inside an ancient chapel in the heart of Africa? A place with no nuclear facilities, no uranium mines, and no modern technology. For decades, scientists weren't allowed to come closer than 50 meters to the chapel. But last year, an international research team finally received limited permission from the Ethiopian government. In exchange for significant financial support, they were allowed to conduct a non-invasive scan of the ground surrounding the building. They never entered the chapel. Instead, they scanned through the walls and deep into the earth below. Detectors were placed around the structure to capture data from muons, cosmic particles that constantly rain down on the planet. These particles pass effortlessly through stone and human tissue, but dense metals stop them cold. Lead, gold, uranium, plutonium. It's essentially an X-ray system for entire buildings and mountains. After a full month of uninterrupted scanning, a supercomputer processed the enormous dataset. What emerged on the 3D model was impossible to ignore. Beneath the chapel floor, inside the structure itself, was a perfectly defined rectangular object. Its size matched the biblical description exactly, down to the centimeter, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits tall. But that wasn't the most disturbing discovery. The real shock was the density. The scan revealed that the object was made of solid gold, not thin plating, but pure cast gold, several centimeters thick. The amount of metal involved would weigh several tons, and inside that massive golden shell was another shape, an inner core made of lead. At the center of the lead core is a concentrated source of ionizing radiation. It isn't strong, but it is steady and unmistakable. The ark is actively emitting radiation. A specific form of gamma radiation passes straight through the thick stone walls of the chapel. This isn't background radiation from nature. It comes from a man-made isotope, and it has remained active for thousands of years. That means something is still happening inside the box. A reaction that hasn't weakened, hasn't burned out, and hasn't stopped. To understand what is really hidden in Ethiopia and how it ever got there, we have to step backward through history to the last known location of the ark before it vanished. Israel. The hill of Kiryat Yarim, just a few kilometers from Jerusalem. According to the Bible, the ark rested in the house of Amminadab for 20 years before King David moved it to Jerusalem. For generations, this site was dismissed as nothing more than a quiet hill covered in olive trees. Ordinary, forgettable. But recent excavations changed everything. Tel Aviv University, working alongside French researchers from the Collège de France, launched large-scale digs at the site. Beneath a shallow layer of soil, they uncovered a massive, carefully engineered structure. This was no ordinary settlement. Archaeologists uncovered a massive man-made platform, walls 3 meters high, 5 meters thick, aligned perfectly with the cardinal directions. It looked less like a foundation and more like a launching or isolation platform. The soil at its center was sterile. No debris, no bones, no pottery. The stones were fused into glass, requiring temperatures over 1,200 degrees Celsius. Ordinary fire couldn't do this. Only a focused, intense energy source, plasma or radiation, could. Mass spectrometry revealed signs of extreme radiation, rare elements, and atomic-level changes in the minerals. Whatever stood here for 20 years wasn't a sacred relic. It was a working generator, releasing plasma or high-voltage electricity, scorching the ground beneath it. The people of Kiryat Yarim didn't worship it. They feared it. The Bible provides technical instructions: acacia wood, gold lining, conductor, insulator, conductor. Any physicist would recognize it as a capacitor, a Leyden jar capable of storing massive electrical charge. Combined with its location, the ark was designed to harness energy at extreme voltage. The desert, dry air, wind carrying sand, constant friction, curtains of silk and wool inside the tabernacle rubbing together in the breeze, much like sails on a ship. These were ideal conditions for generating massive amounts of static electricity. The ark could store an enormous electrical charge, tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of volts, drawn directly from the surrounding atmosphere. And look at what sits on its lid. 2 golden cherubim, facing each other, their wings touching, or almost touching. In electrical terms, this is a textbook design for lightning arresters. When the voltage reaches a critical level, the air between the wings breaks down, a plasma arc forms, and electricity discharges violently. The Bible tells the story of Uzzah, who reached out to steady the ark when the oxen stumbled. The moment his hand touched it, he collapsed and died. Scripture calls it divine punishment. A modern medical examiner would describe it differently: sudden cardiac arrest caused by a high-voltage electrical shock, instantaneous ventricular fibrillation with little or no external burns. Researchers at the University of Minnesota even built a precise mathematical model of the ark using its biblical dimensions. Their calculations showed that its capacitance would be enough to kill multiple people, or to produce a visible halo of light. The glory of God. The Shekinah, a corona discharge glowing around the cherubim. This explains the radiant light, the voice emerging from the cloud, the thunder-like sounds, and the deadly danger of direct contact. It also explains why the Levites wore specialized garments and footwear, possibly to provide grounding, and used wooden poles to carry the ark without touching the gold. These weren't religious rituals. They were high-voltage safety procedures. But electricity alone doesn't explain everything. It accounts for electrocution, but not the radiation sickness reported in Ethiopia, not the hair loss, the burns, or the long-term damage to stone structures in Israel. A capacitor can shock, but it cannot emit radiation for thousands of years. For that, something else is required, and this is where the Axum scans become critical. Muon imaging revealed that inside the gold shell, inside the lead container, there is something more: dense, compact, and strangely shaped objects. Tradition claims these are the tablets of the covenant, stone slabs carved with the commandments. But stone is transparent to muons. These objects are not. These objects are denser than gold, incredibly heavy for their size. Faced with this evidence, geologists and nuclear physicists proposed a bold and unsettling idea. What if Moses didn't place ordinary stone tablets inside the ark at all? What if he placed radioactive ore? In the Sinai Mountains and across the Negev Desert, rich deposits of uranium ore exist, particularly uraninite. If ancient priests discovered unusually heavy stones that felt warm to the touch or even glowed faintly in the dark, they might have believed they were fragments of divine power, sacred fire that doesn't burn, yet kills. To them, this would not have been dangerous matter. It would have been God-made physical. Encasing such material in gold would offer partial shielding from gamma radiation, not perfect, but significant. Lead would have worked better, but gold was far more available and far more sacred. What they created may have been a primitive reactor or an early form of a radiological weapon. Not a true nuclear reactor. Achieving a sustained fission chain reaction would have been impossible. But the mass alone would have been enough to generate intense ionizing radiation and heat, enough to kill. In modern terms, it may have functioned as an ancient radioisotope thermoelectric generator. And suddenly, everything makes sense. The mysterious plague that struck the Philistines after they captured the ark Tumours, swelling, ulcers. The Bible calls them boils. Modern medicine would recognize them as radiation burns, soft tissue decay, and aggressive cancers. The Philistines didn't know the safety rules. They opened the ark. They touched it. They placed it inside their temples. And thousands died. This also explains why the high priest entered the Holy of Holies only once a year. Each visit meant exposure, a controlled dose. Over time, many of them died young. And it explains their garments, not ceremonial costumes, but protective equipment designed to survive contact with something far more dangerous than a symbol. The ephod, a garment woven with threads of gold. The breastplate set with 12 precious stones, providing added protection over the chest. A gold plate worn across the forehead. Together, these pieces functioned like an ancient but surprisingly effective radiation suit, shielding vital organs from alpha and beta particles. Even the small details mattered. Bells sewn into the priest's garments weren't decorative. They were a warning system. As long as the bells could be heard, the priest inside the Holy of Holies was still alive and moving. If the sound stopped, it meant something had gone wrong. A rope was tied to his leg so his body could be pulled out. No one else could enter to help. Doing so could be deadly. But there's another line of evidence. Not carved into stone, not buried in ruins, written in blood. Genetics, a science that doesn't rely on belief. In southern Africa, across South Africa and Zimbabwe, lives the Lemba tribe. They are black Africans who speak a Bantu language, yet their customs are strikingly unusual. They don't eat pork, they don't mix meat and dairy, they circumcise their boys. They observe a day of rest. Their graves are marked with stars of David. Their oral history, passed down for generations, tells of ancestors who came from the north, Jews, who carried a powerful sacred object from Jerusalem and journeyed south through Africa over centuries. They call themselves the people who carried the ark. When geneticists in London analysed DNA samples from the Lemba, the results were extraordinary and published in leading scientific journals. One clan in particular, the Buba clan, traditionally held priestly and leadership roles. Their DNA revealed the Cohen modal haplotype, a rare genetic signature found almost exclusively among Jewish priests, the Kohanim, direct descendants of Aaron, the brother of Moses. The odds of this genetic match appearing in an African tribe by chance are estimated at 1 in a million. This is direct, hard scientific evidence of a priestly migration from Jerusalem all the way to southern Africa. These people weren't traveling empty-handed. They were carrying something of immense importance. And according to their own traditions, the ark did not remain in Ethiopia forever. Ethiopia was only a waypoint. The true ark, or at least its most dangerous component, was taken even farther south, hidden deep within the caves of the Dungi Mountains in present-day Zimbabwe. In 2010, researchers at the Harare Museum revisited a strange artifact discovered in those caves back in the 1940s. The Ngoma Lungundu, a drum said to roar like thunder. Radiocarbon dating showed that the wood came from the 10th century AD, the era when Great Zimbabwe was built. But this wasn't the original object. It was a replica, a reconstruction. Inside the wooden shell, scientists found traces of melted metal and microscopic particles of gold. Many experts now believe this was a substitute ark, a transport container designed to carry the most dangerous contents of the original. When the golden ark was hidden or lost in Ethiopia, its core may have been removed and moved separately. And that core may still be somewhere in Africa, or it may have returned to Axum. Now, let's go back to Jerusalem. Back to ground zero, where this story began. After the Babylonians destroyed the first temple in 586 BCE, the ark suddenly vanishes from the biblical record. Why? King Nebuchadnezzar left detailed inventories of everything he looted: gold cups, spoons, knives, pillars. Yet there is no mention of the ark, the most sacred object of all. The simplest explanation is also the most unsettling. It wasn't there. Or it was hidden so well that the Babylonians never found it. So where was it concealed? The answer may lie beneath the feet of millions of worshippers, The Temple Mount. Beneath the dome of the rock lies the Well of Souls, Bir al-Arwah. Below its marble floor, scans reveal a massive hidden chamber and sealed tunnels carved into the rock. Many believe the Ark never left Jerusalem. According to one theory, King Solomon foresaw the temple's destruction and hid the Ark using underground shafts and a mechanical platform that lowered it into a deep bunker. In 1970, Rabbi Yehuda Getz claimed he found this passage, but it was sealed to prevent unrest. In 2023, scans detected a large metallic object inside, reflecting like gold. Reaching it, however, would mean disturbing one of Islam's holiest sites. Recent discoveries suggest the Ark was not symbolic, but a real engineered device. The ancients didn't understand electricity or radiation, but they learned how to use them. Gold shielded invisible fire. Wood and gold stored energy. They built what became known as God's machine, a source of power, protection, and destruction. What was found in Ethiopia may only be the shell. Sensors still detect radiation, suggesting the core remains active. The reaction continues. The heart of the Ark is still beating. Another theory claims the Ark wasn't just a weapon, but a life support system. Engineers proposed it produced manna using algae grown under radiation-powered light. This could explain how the Israelites survived 40 years in the desert. And then there's Jericho. Trumpets alone don't shatter stone, unless sound was amplified by energy. Unless it's amplified, if the Ark was an energy source, it could have functioned as an acoustic weapon, a device based on resonance. The Ark was carried around the city for 7 days. Perhaps it was slowly building up energy. At the critical moment, synchronized with the trumpets and their vibrations echoing against the walls, the Ark may have released a powerful pulse, converting sound into a destructive shockwave. A focused sonic boom, an artificial earthquake, a technology of sound the ancient world understood, and that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. Then, suddenly, the research in Axum stopped. At the end of 2023, all investigations were halted. The official explanation: an unstable political situation in the Tigray region. Civil war. An unofficial account is now quietly circulating within scientific circles, a chilling warning from physicists. If the Ark were opened today, if the seal of its gold or lead casing were broken, the consequences could be catastrophic. Ancient radiation could be released, contaminating groundwater and the air itself, or worse, biological threats. If the organic material inside, the manna, was altered by thousands of years of radiation exposure, it could have mutated into something far more dangerous. Ancient microorganisms transformed into superpathogens, a biological weapon sealed in time. The guardian in Axum is dying, yet he still refuses to let anyone enter. He stands watch with a cross in one hand and a rifle in the other. Perhaps he is not merely a religious zealot. Perhaps he understands the danger. Perhaps he is a protector, a final human barrier between the modern world and a technology we are not prepared to control. The Ark has been located. We know where it is. We have begun to understand how it works. And that knowledge is far more frightening than centuries of ignorance. Science may have confirmed the Bible, but in the most brutally material way imaginable. There are no miracles here, only physics that kills. Technologies that were forgotten, but never destroyed. The world waits. The Vatican remains silent, though rumors suggest it holds its own data and copies of classified reports. Israel is silent as well, guarding the tunnels beneath the Temple Mount with elite forces. But radiation readings and muon scans don't lie forever. Data has a way of escaping. In a small, dusty chapel at the edge of the world, surrounded by war and poverty, a golden box still stands. A box that once spoke with what people believed was the voice of God. That burned armies to ash. That fed entire nations. And it is still there. It hums at frequencies the human ear cannot hear. It generates heat. It waits. The real question is not when we will open it. The question is whether we would survive the moment we do. The story of the Ark is not finished. It has entered a new phase, a scientific critical phase. And this phase may become the final chapter in humanity's search for God, or the rediscovery of the most terrifying weapon ever created. Would you dare lift the lid of the Ark, knowing it could trigger an uncontrolled nuclear reaction? Tell us what you think in the comments. The truth is out there, and it's astonishing. Thank you to everyone who watched this episode until the end. Your support, likes, and subscriptions truly matter to us. And don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss our future investigations.